Educational Communications and this station present Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman. On this series, we explore the effects of human influence on the Earth's ecosystems and discuss solutions to environmental problems which affect the quality of life on this planet. Environmental Directions gives you the kind of information you need to help you participate in decisions impacting your community, the nation, and the world. Now, here's your host, Nancy Pearlman.
Hello. We are going to be talking about tracking and saving wild animals in South Africa and safaris to national parks with my guest, Alex Heever. He is the expert animal tracker and director of Kruger Untamed. He was formerly a game ranger at the Londolozi Game Reserve, and he is co-founder of the Tracker Academy. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here.
You obviously love wildlife. You want people to enjoy wildlife. You want wildlife saved. And there are so many beautiful game reserves, national parks in South Africa. The most famous is Kruger. Could you tell us about your safaris and your camps in that area?
Yes, of course. Kruger National Park is a massive expanse of land. We're talking 20,000 square kilometers. That's about the size of the state of Israel. So it's bigger than some countries. We have two camps in Kruger National Park. The one is called Chokwan River Camp, which is in the southern extent of the reserve. And the other is about an hour and a half north of that in an area called Satara Plains Camp. And what's fantastic is that they both occupy very distinctly different types of habitat. Chokwan is in a more wooded area. There's perhaps a greater diversity of animals. It's excellent for leopard viewing. Our camp is situated right on the bank of a dry riverbed, and it looks over the sandy riverbed, and we often have elephants coming down, digging for water, creating natural watering holes for themselves to drink. Animals are constantly moving in and around our camp. And then at Satara Plains Camp, it's wide open. It looks like the Serengeti. It's open grassland, dotted with trees, knobthorn trees. And what's special about the Satara area, it's lion country. When our camp is up between May and September, bearing in mind both of these camps are seasonal, they come alive on the 1st of May, and we run through till the end of September. We call them vanishing camps, Nancy. When we put those camps up, in the wintertime is cooler, and it's the best time of the year to be inside Kruger National Park. It's also the time that the zebra and the wildebeest start to migrate. And they migrate from the northern extent of the Kruger down the eastern side and right through our concession, where there is the highest density of lions in southern Africa. And when you add herds of wildebeest and zebra to a high lion density, you get lots of action. And that's why we love the Satara area. But they're very different and they offer different things. And we always say, come and spend a few nights at each of the camps.
When I was in South Africa, I saw so much wildlife and plant life. Let's not forget that. Very unique area. Of course, we have to remember that we here in the United States are in a different season than you, because you're in the southern part of Africa. So our winter is your summer?
Correct. As I say, in 13 days' time, both our camps will come alive. It's the best time to be in the Kruger because you can spend all day out. It's beautiful weather.
Most people, when they go on a safari, want to see those beautiful large animals, from the leopards, the lions, the wildebeest, the elephants, the rhinos. But yet you have a lot of smaller animals that are equally fascinating to see. And of course, lots of birds. Is there any kind of count? How many species are there?
Well, we have 500 different species of birds. That diversity changes from the southern area to the north. And then, of course, we have all the antelope species and all the small mammals. I don't know how many exact number of species there are, but there's a lot to keep people interested. And then at night, we have all the nightlife that comes, owls and the genets and the porcupines and civets. These are animals you only see after dark. There's a lot of activity both during the day and at night.
In addition to the wildlife, I found the cultural traditions of the various groups of people in South Africa. Fascinating. I think your country has more national languages than any other country in the world, about 12. There are a lot of different groups of people who have traditionally lived in that area. Do you share some of that human cultural tradition?
Absolutely. Nancy, yes, you're quite right. We had 12 official languages. They just added one more for good measure. We now have sign language, making it 13 official languages. But absolutely, in the Kruger National Park, the local people there are known as the Shangaan people or the Tsonga, depending on exactly where you are. They're a group of people that occupy that whole of the Kruger area, right up into southern Mozambique and into parts of southern Zimbabwe. You ask about my connection. I started as a game ranger when I was 19 years old, 31 years ago. I was assigned a Shangaan man called Renius Mklongo. He was to be, quote unquote, my tracker when I arrived at Londolozi Game Reserve as a young safari guide. Although I'd been through all the formal training, it became quickly evident that he had all the knowledge. He was going to keep us safe. He was going to show us where to find the animals. And in fact, I was just a driver guide. Him and I have now worked together for 30 years. All my working life, I have been with Renius, first as guide and tracker together. Then we started the Tracker Academy later. And more recently, we are partners in the Kruger Untamed camps you mentioned earlier. And Renius is a special man, Nancy, because he's one of the last people alive today to be raised on the original traditions of a Shangaan hunter-gatherer. He was one of the last people to be born into a family who survived from the land. Yes, they had a few cattle and goats, and they had some vegetables, but every 5 or 6 years, they would move to a new location. When the vegetables no longer grew well, when the grazing wasn't so good, they would move. They were not sedentary. They would move from time to time. The bottom line is that Renius grew up a barefooted little boy herding cattle and goats, and that was his education. Whilst he has no formal Western schooling education, he has incredible ecological literacy. His ability to read the signs of the animals, to predict and anticipate their behavior, to notice subtle patterns in the bushveld is just off the charts. He's an expert tracker. And I have learned pretty much everything I know about the bush, and all my experiences have been with Renius. Initially as a guide and tracker, and then later in these other entities that we started and got involved with. And by the way, we've spent time in your country. 15 years ago, before we started the Tracker Academy, we traveled around the United States and we tracked bears and wolves in Yellowstone National Park. We went south into the Amazon to South America, where we tracked jaguars. And we continued further south into Patagonia, Chile, where we tracked mountain lions. We've tested our skills as trackers all over the world, including many parts of Africa, Australia, and Asia. And so tracking is our life. Our relationship is what has driven this. We're the best of friends. He's 13 years older than me. And it's just been a wonderful ride, an incredible journey. And what is very special here is that he started off, as I said, a barefooted hunter-gatherer, and he now returns as a shareholder in a legitimate safari business. Never mind the American dream. The South African dream is possible too. This man was as poor as you can make him, and he now stands a proud owner of a seriously imminent safari business in Kruger National Park.
What a wonderful story, and sounds like an incredible individual. I look forward to meeting him someday, meeting you in person someday. When you talk about trackers, for people like me, an ecotourist who wants to go out and see the wildlife, I've been on safaris in East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, and we depend on these people to find the animals and point them out to us. And I'm amazed because we'll be driving along. They'll say, look at that animal there. We don't see it until they point it out. And then, of course, we have that incredible experience of seeing wildlife outside of a zoo environment. But traditionally, a lot of trackers were used for people to go and shoot and kill these animals. Now, I think some trackers are being used to try and stop poachers from going and illegally killing these animals that we need. Is that what the Tracker Academy is all about? Training these individuals to be able to help save them as well as show the tourist?
That's exactly right, Nancy. We started the Tracker Academy 15 years ago in response to a need that arose, which I noticed when we were young guides, tracker working at Londolozi. The things that Renius could do in the bush, the animals he could find, from noticing a faint leopard track to 2 hours later producing a magnificent sighting that guests from all around the world had paid thousands of dollars to come and see. He is the unsung hero in the safari business. We started to have a conversation about we wanted to make sure that these ancient animal tracking skills are not lost forever. We know that the apartheid regime, the apartheid days, social engineering, moving people off their land, and indeed Renius's family, him and his family were forcibly evicted from their land in 1969. He knows what it's like to be disempowered, disenfranchised, and this is the story of many of these expert trackers. And in addition to that, this rapid trend of urbanization around the world has happened in Southern Africa too. People have moved away from their lands, and so tracking is no longer something that is naturally handed down. And so the only way that was left for us was to formalize its training. And so in 2010, and with Gaynor Rupert and the Rupert Nature Foundation and the Rupert family, they supported our idea, and Gaynor and Renius and I founded the Tracker Academy. What it meant really is that we were able to raise the funding necessary to bring young men and women who are all unemployed, many without hope, living in rural villages close to wildlife, big wildlife areas, onto a formal tracker training course. And so that's what we started 15 years ago. And in this decade and a half, we've trained over 300 professional trackers. And a statistic we're most proud of is that 95.5% of those graduates are now in permanent conservation jobs, either working at lodges like Renius and I did at Londolozi in the ecotourism industry, or, as you say, they are working in anti-poaching units in the wildlife protection industry, protecting rhino. As you probably know, rhino poaching rose its head again in 2011, and it's surging. We've gone from 12,000 rhino inside Kruger National Park to under 2,000 in 12 years. We are now showing this, that the professional trackers are the last line of defense in this. At the end of the day, if somebody comes into the game reserve with nefarious intentions, someone has to track him or her, find them and apprehend them. Right now, there's no technology that can help us with that. Yes, there are military-grade drones and so on. They haven't been yet fully utilized in Southern Africa. And so it's left to these trackers to use their ancient bushcraft skills to be able to guard rhino and protect rhino and create safe havens. And whilst the statistics I share with you are very daunting, we are making gains.
I'm so pleased that you are making those gains and that you're out there doing the work that you're doing. Naturally, most people go on wildlife safaris to see the animals, but South Africa has a unique plant community. And I remember decades ago doing a documentary with a South African professor at the University of California at Irvine who had a seed bank showing me the plants of South Africa, which are very similar to the plants of Southern California, but are different species. They evolved pretty much the same way. What are some of the plants that they can see?
The acacia is the famous one. We have several acacia species. Those are the trees that have the white thorns. And we have marula trees, which are the elephant's favorite tree. There's the buffalo thorn. Buffalo thorn tree is also an important tree in the South African Lowveld in the Kruger National Park area. It's browse value. There are many. The knobthorn tree as well as one of the acacias, which is very hard wood. And it's one of the trees that elephants like to push over and eat the roots and the bark. And then up further north in Kruger National Park, you get into Mapani woodlands. And that's a very interesting vegetation type where you get very tall, beautiful Mapani forests, really. And they shed their leaves. They have a leaf that's the shape of a butterfly. They shed their leaves in the winter. It gets very open in the winter. And then in the summer, when they leaf, it gets very, very dense. So those are some of the trees we get.
We've been talking about the plant and animal life on land, but South Africa has a lot of ocean and you have marine reserves. What kind of wildlife can one see when one is along the coast?
Yes, and there are parks that are close to the coast or on the coast. St. Lucia, Pinde Game Reserve has a sand forest, very unique sand forest. And there you can go on the safari in the morning and you can go scuba diving in the afternoon. It's very close. Some of the greatest reefs that South Africa has to offer. So yes, we do. We have a great diversity of fish and coral life. Most of it is untouched.
I want to talk more about what you're involved with in terms of saving the wildlife of Southern Africa, as well as the wonderful safari opportunities with your company, Kruger Untamed, when we return in a moment with my guest, Alex Vanderheffer.
Environmental Directions with Nancy Pearlman continues with further discussion of the world's critical ecological issues. For more information, you may call 310-559-9160 or go to www.ecoprojects.org. Now, here's Nancy.
I am speaking with Alex Vanderheffer. He is the expert animal tracker and director of Kruger Untamed. We've been talking about the importance of the traditional tracking skills and how they're being used. Your statistic, though, about how many rhinos have been killed, poached, and how many are left is really shocking. I do remember going to South Africa with Ian Player, who you know, who ran the International Wilderness Leadership School and saved the white rhino. I think they were down to just under 100 individuals, and he was able to reestablish the population both in South Africa and in neighboring countries. Are those kinds of efforts still happening to save wildlife that has been threatened by poaching?
Yes, they are. We are moving rhino into safe havens from areas where they are under threat. There are breeding areas that have been set up. Recently, a private commercial farmer bred in excess of 2,000 rhino. All of those rhino are now being released into areas where we know we can protect them well. There are some fantastic efforts. Peace Parks Foundation is moving rhino into some key locations in Mozambique. African Parks Network is another big NGO, also doing incredible work, moving rhino into areas where we can protect them. Yes, there's a lot of money, effort, resources, and there's a lot of will to ensure that this species is protected. We've had a hard time. I think we became complacent in the intervening period. The price of rhino horn in Asia went up. A combination of other factors led to this recent surge in rhino horn poaching. I'm confident we are stemming the flow, and I think we will win it eventually. And we do that through converting the hearts and minds of the communities, the villages, the people that live in these villages surrounding and in some cases inside these national parks. And one of the ways you do that, Nancy, you help them learn their own natural heritage, their own culture, which is tracking. So you give them an opportunity to learn a skill that is inherently African. And it becomes an African solution to an African problem. And I see our graduates leaving Tracker Academy incredibly proud, walking tall, and with a strong desire to make use of these newfound skills to protect wildlife and to make a contribution to wildlife protection. And not only that, to enter the economy of wildlife, more importantly, such that they can earn an income and they can send their kids to school, they can build a home, they can buy a car, and they can enter the mainstream economy. So tracking, it touches a species, it touches human culture, it touches the economy. And so it brings together a number of strings that are vital for successful wildlife preservation in Africa.
It's not just saving the rhino, which is being poached for its horn. Elephants are being killed for the ivory. We have to change the culture in other parts of the world so that they don't want these products, because these animals deserve to be alive and have their horns, their tusks, and whatever, their skins on them. Much more important to protect the animal and let them exist. I'm a cat lover. You have a special relationship with a wild leopard. Does a wild leopard actually know you?
I think the story you are referring to, yes, that's what happened. So Renius and I started to track a particular leopard at Londolozi in the 1990s. A female, a young female called the Mangen female. Mangen, the word Mangen means aloe in the language of Shangaan. And it just so happened that this particular leopard had a core area of her territory near an aloe grove. So hence Mangen female. And for some reason, Nancy, when we tracked the Mangen female, we had a higher than average success rate with finding her. So let me be clear here. We would drive out of the camp with our guests in the safari truck. Renius would sit on the front, on the hood of the vehicle. I'd be driving. We would drive and drive and drive until Renius would spot the faint, obscure little tracks of a leopard either crossing the road or walking down the road. We would then park the truck, we'd tell our guests to wait, and then we'd go on foot, and Renius would follow. And over time, he taught me the skill, and so eventually there were two of us that would follow. And now tracking a leopard is very mercurial in the way it moves. It's not like a lion or a rhino that move in reasonably straight lines. Leopards are hard to track. They represent the most challenging problem for a tracker. And so we started to track her, and we were finding her regularly. And so obviously she was seeing us, smelling us, hearing us on foot. And now we're talking over a period of 3 or 4 years. And one day we had a group of guests who were really keen to see leopard. We haven't been able to find a leopard for them. They eventually went back. We went and dropped them back at the camp for breakfast. It was late. We'd been tracking hard. We struck out. But on the way back, as we were arriving into the lodge, we got a radio call that another tracker had found tracks of this leopard. So we dropped our guests. We told them, we're not going to have breakfast with you. We're going to go back out and try again. And we drove back out into the bush, and we found the tracks that this other tracker had found, and we started to follow. And not 15 minutes later, we found the Mangan female, and she was way down in a valley, and I looked up with my binoculars and I could see she was stalking something. We were 300 yards off. She didn't even notice that we were there. But I could see through my binoculars she was stalking something small, and eventually I worked out she was stalking a group of mongoose. And Renius could see with his naked eye. He said to me, she's hungry. She's very, very hungry. A leopard hunting in the daytime is unusual, especially hunting mongoose, which is not their ideal prey. And so I said to Ren, well, let's go back, go fetch the guests and come back and show them. He said, no, let's walk with her, but let's see what she's up to. And I said to him, Ren, but no, we must go back, get the guests. He says, no, let's walk with her. So we walked. We closed the gap from 300 yards to 200 yards. She turned, she looked at us. She showed us no aggression, no fear. She kept going. She eventually chased after the mongoose, didn't catch it. We closed the gap to 100 yards, to 50 yards, to 20 yards. No aggression, no fear. We were right behind her. We followed her up onto the termite mound and ant heap. We watched her as she scanned the horizon. We watched her. I noticed as she noticed baboons alarming in the distance. I watched her notice vultures descending, and I wondered, thinking to myself, I wonder what she knows. Does she link the presence of vultures to meat? Not 5 minutes later, she spots something in the woodland up ahead, and she goes into a full stalk. Now, Renius and I are either side of her, 5 or 6 yards behind her, either side of her. And she is stalking what became a small antelope called a gray duiker. And now you've got this leopard and its 2 human companions in a hunt with a wild animal. She was focused, and eventually Renius said, let's back away. We don't want to ruin the hunt. And as we were backing off, she charged and she missed the duiker. And I wondered whether we had affected her ability to catch the duiker that day. In the weeks and the months that followed that interaction, every time she'd see us in the Land Rover, she'd literally turn towards us. This is a wild leopard. She'd see us and she'd see me or Renius. She'd turn and she'd come towards the truck. I had no door on my side, and she'd walk right up to me and she'd make this chuffing sound. And nobody knew what this chuffing sound was. I asked leopard researchers who were working in the Kruger at the time. No one could tell me. Many years later, John Varty, who worked with tigers for many years, told me when big cats chuff, it's part of a greeting. Was the Mangan female greeting us? I like to think she was. We had an incredible relationship that went on for many years after that. Eventually, she got spat in the eye by a Mozambican spitting cobra. She went blind in her right eye. And a few weeks later, we never saw her again.
Incredible, fascinating experiences, stories, because you go out regularly to see the wildlife and to show people the wildlife. How many individual animals do you actually identify? Because I know that elephants can look very distinctive depending on their markings. I'm not sure about cats or some of the other animals. How many do you recognize as individuals in the species?
All of the animals are unique. You can identify all individuals, just like you can identify all human beings as individuals. And most importantly, even animals like a buffalo or a rhino or an impala, they all have very individual characters, like that leopard I was talking about earlier. But we usually can identify the territorial animals by their face or by their bodily marking. So if a lion pride has its territory around our camp and we're seeing it regularly, we will recognize those females, that male, those individual cubs. Any animal that frequents the area where we are operating, if it's there regularly, we'll be able to identify it. But Kruger is a massive landscape, and elephants, for example, are constantly moving. Every now and then you might get a big elephant bull that's got a big cut in its ear or something as a prominent feature. Then you can say, oh, I remember seeing him last week or last month. That happens. But the elephants are moving, the buffalo are moving, the zebra and wildebeest are moving. So many of the animals are constantly on the move. So you may not see them for many months or even a year. That's hard to remember and identify individuals. But certainly for the territorial leopards, lions, some of the hyenas, you can identify the individuals.
I wish we had time to hear so many more because you've been out in the wild and I know that you have those experiences to share. But if we as tourists want to come get our own experiences, they need to sign up with your safari expeditions. How do they contact you? What are your websites?
The one to go to is krugeruntamed.com.
And that is spelled www.krugeruntamed.com.
Correct. There's a booking page there you can book. And if you want to go tracking with Renius, that can be arranged separately, but through the same process. And you would be welcome to come tracking with us, come and do what we've been doing for 30 years in the bush. We'd love to have you.
And the website for the trackers is www.worldtrackers.co.za. WORLDTRACKERS.co.za. ZA for South Africa.
Correct.
You focus safaris in Kruger National Park, but how many other national parks can they go to? How many different kinds of wildlife experiences can they have?
There are many places in Southern Africa to fantastic national parks and wildlife areas. The Okavango Delta comes to mind in Botswana. Luangwa National Park in Zambia is another one. Kafue, Selous in Tanzania. There are many, but there are very few that do what we do. You can elect to go on a truck on a normal game drive, or you can actually go on foot and go tracking with Renius. And in fact, one step further, Renius will teach you to track, and before you know it, you'll be on the front following and tracking a lion yourself.
And I went to the Umfolozi National Park and the St. Lucia National Park. Your country has so much to offer. I want to thank you so very much for sharing your beautiful wildlife with us. I gather that every time you go out, it's a new experience.
It is indeed. Bushveld is dynamic. It's on the move. I have been going in the bush every year, every day for 30 years. There's no 2 days that are the same. There's so much to show. It's a treasure trove of things to see, hear, feel. And please do come and join us, Nancy, and all of your followers. Come to Kruger Untamed, come to our Chokwan River Camp or our Satara Plains Camp, and come and be immersed in the Kruger National Park. Come on foot, come tracking with Renius. We'd love to see you there.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. When you take tourists on safari, you've had experiences with the various animals. What kind of experiences will they have?
Yeah, that's a good question, Nancy. So there are 2 types of experiences. When you go in the safari truck, the animals are used, they're habituated to that sight and the sound of that truck driving around. And so mostly the animals just watch you. They don't run. And as long as you keep your distance, and now I'm talking elephants, you're respectful of what their needs and with their movements, you can have incredible sightings. And the animals are very, very forgiving. We must remember that the animals are not out to hurt us, eat us, or anything. We are a predator, the apex predator at that, and we get treated as such. If we choose to ignore their signals, if we choose to ignore and not respect their space, they will give you a warning. And if you choose to ignore that too, well, then all bets are off. But the point is that when you're in the truck, you can have incredibly safe and incredibly close encounters with very calm animals. The elephants in Kruger are mostly very calm. The buffalo, the lions will lie right next to your vehicle. They'll lie on their backs. When you go off on foot, however, the game changes. Now the animal recognizes you as a predator. The safety of the car is now no longer. And so we have to be a lot more vigilant. And you will see that if you can get 10 yards from a herd of impala in a car, you won't get 100 yards from them on foot, because now they see you as that predator. You're upright in posture. We've got the classic predator binocular vision. We consume meat, so we probably smell like a predator too. We're in that offensive upright posture, and so they will run away. And so when we track lions or rhino or elephant on foot, we're constantly stopping, listening. The idea is not to have a photographic experience with a lion on foot. The idea is to immerse guests in the ancient art of animal tracking, such that they can experience this incredible tradition and this incredible mixture of art and science, of focus and diffuse thinking. And we are never cavalier. Safety is absolutely our number one priority.
Thank you for being my guest.
It's a great pleasure, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me.
I have been speaking with Alex Heever, who is the expert animal tracker and director of Kruger Untamed and co-founder of the Tracker Academy. I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you very much for joining us, and do tune in again next week.
If you would like free information about these environmental issues, go to www.ecoprojects.org or call 310-559-9160. Environmental Directions with your host, Nancy Perlman, is a community affairs program of the nonprofit organization Educational Communications and this station.